My name is Pauline Mann, President of the Legion. I will now ask everyone to stand while the Legion Color Party is marched on the stage. Sergeant at Arms, march on the colors.
Color Party by the left, quick march. Color Party, halt. Color Party, left turn.
Please remain standing for the national anthem, led by Comrade Jane Hayhoe. Thank you, Jane. Sergeant at Arms, have the Color Party order colors.
Color Party, order colors.
Please be seated. I would now like to introduce our honored guests. Representing Pitt Meadows, Maple Ridge and Mission, Jati Sidhu. The MLA for Abbotsford Mission, Simon Gibson. Bob Deeth, MLA for Maple Ridge Mission. The Mayor of Mission and District, Pam Alexis. Representing the Mission RCMP Detachment, Inspector Fellner. And representing Mission Fire and Rescue, Dale Unruh. And now the invocation by Comrade Dave Bryant.
I'm just waiting for more people.
In this time of prayer and song and remembering, may we feel your presence amongst us. 100 years ago today, the guns of war fell silent. For 100 years, people have gathered on this day to give thanks for the willing sacrifice of those men and women who agreed to wear the uniform of our country. We remember the battlefields of Europe, Hong Kong, Korea, and Afghanistan, and on the sea and in the air, places far away in distance and time. We remember peacekeeping missions in many troubled places across the globe. And as we remember, we utter the words, never again. In 1933, in an Armistice speech, that great Canadian General, Sir Arthur Currie, called on us to remember as follows. With the lapse of years, Armistice Day becomes naturally less demonstrative. The ranks of those who saw service grows yearly smaller as we pay our toll to time, and in the future, the day will grow less weighted with meaning to the generation in the years between. But whatever changes come, and however slight may be the recognition of future generations, I hope that Armistice Day may never cease to be impressive. I hope that the 2 minutes interval of solemn silence will always be more than a formal statutory gesture, that it will always mean a reverent pause, in which we gladly remember with tender and grateful thoughts those who nobly died for our country's ideals. With General Sir Arthur Currie's words in mind, we ask, Lord God of hosts, be with us yet, lest we forget, lest we forget.
Thank you, Dave. I would now like to introduce Karen Humpage to read a letter from the front.
Somewhere.
What are you looking for, Doc?
My glasses! Go on, you let them, aren't you?
Would you like me to read it to you?
Oh, why would you do something?
Dear Dad, I guess you will know by the time this reaches you that I landed in France about a month ago. I should have written to you before, but I could not seem to get down to it. I have just come safely out of a big push. We are out for a while, but we'll likely be in something else pretty soon. It was quite a scrap. Tell the boys I did not need the wheelbarrow they used to talk about. Our artillery put up a barrage for us. It was sure some fireworks. I don't see how anything could possibly live under it. We were told to stand to just before dawn. It was very cold, and I began to wonder what lay ahead of us. But once we got started, I felt all right. It is sort of nerve-getting for the artillery to start their barrage, let us know that we could jump okay. The worst thing was the enemy machine gun fire. It was pretty bad in places. Our company got quite a bit of it. There was not much chance to use the bayonet. Frits don't like to come hand-to-hand fighting. We took quite a number of prisoners. Many of them seemed just lads, not much fight in them. They seemed only too glad to be taken prisoners. One thing I saw did not impress me very much. A plane caught on fire just above and behind the trench we had taken and were holding. Both occupants fell out and came spiraling down, sometimes head first, sometimes feet first. They must have fallen at least 800 to 900 feet. The machine came down like a bird with a clipped wing. It was a distressing sight. I've had all my mail forwarded to me from Seaford. You can tell Mum and the girls to send me all the stuff they want to. Oh, put in anything they like. It's not wise to send tobacco in very big tins as we are on the move a large part of the time, and we have not much room to pack stuff. Cake and dried fruit is good stuff to send. A tin of maple syrup would go good, but there is that would be most acceptable of all, and that would be some good Scotch whiskey. I've had a jolt or two of rum, but it's a little rich for my blood. It nearly took my breath away. The first time I took a drink of it, a little of it goes a long way, but it is surely good stuff to warm you up when you are wet and cold. Thank the Lord the prohibitionists have not been able to do away with it. I don't mind this life too bad. One thing, they feed you pretty fair. Of course, it's not Mum's home cooking by any means, but you can get along on it all right. Oh. But the sleeping part is not so good. When you are in the line, you sleep sometimes in dugouts, and sometimes in cubby holes in the side of the trench, and sometimes we have nowhere to lay our head. It's so cold. Cold ground for us then. You only take your ground sheet with you when you go into a push, so you're not liable to be too warm at night time. I have, of course, met Arthur. We had several great chats over old times. He looks as good as the day he left home. He's away in England now on 14-day leave. He is OC's groom, but our OC has been promoted, and Arthur may go with him when he comes back. I also met Basil Topper. He wished to be remembered to you. I was talking to Arthur one day when who should come up also but Walter Plumridge. He looks as hard as nails. And young Donatelli came to us on the last draft. He is sitting beside me reading a letter from home. The place we are in is a pleasant little village, lots of trees and a few orchards. A few of the French people have returned to their homes. Most of them keep little shops in the ruins of their homes and sell eggs and sundries to all the troops. One thing that strikes me is that most of these people are fair, some real blondes, and I was under the impression that the majority of French people were dark. I am sorry to hear of Mrs. Manser's death. She was indeed a grand type of Scots womanhood. Tell Mum not to worry. I'm all right. With best love to you all at home and kind remembrances to all my friends. Archie. Oh.
Thank you, Karen. And now the hymn Eternal Father, led by Jane Hayhoe.
Please sing along. The words are in your program.
Eternal Father, strong to save, whose arm hath bound the restless wave, who fixed the mighty ocean deep, its own appointed limits keep. Oh, hear us when we cry to thee, for those in peril on the sea. O Christ, whose voice the waters heard, and hushed their raging at thy word, who walkest on the flowing deep, and calm rage didst sleep. Oh, hear us when we cry to thee, for those in peril on the sea. Most holy
Thank you, Jane. I will now read the Roll of Honor of mission residents who have given their lives. Roll of Honor, 1914 to 1918, World War I, 96 names. Abbott Hector, Abbott Vivian, Airth William, Asbury Arthur Gerard, Ashmore Richard Howell, Aves Edwin Thomas, Aves Harry Arthur, Aves Richard Edward, Bloy Harry Morris, Boucher Morris Joseph, Brakey Henry Leopold, Bush Arthur Herbert, Campbell John Stewart, Card Horace William, Carter Harry Lewis, Carter Norton, Catchpole Gordon Harmer, Catherwood Ewart, Charman Arthur Herbert, Chester Frederick, Child James Martin, Christy William, Claryhugh Clarence Ernest, Cunningham William Ritchie, Derbyshire Lionel Charles, Donatelli Antonio, Exshaw Edward Halliday, Fennel James Norris, Fennel Lionel Mills, Fisher Alvin Ward, Gasley Clarence Seward, Gibbard Arthur Alvin, Gibbs Alfred, Go Edwin Berry, Grassick Alfred, Hall Frederick John, Hanson Roy Howard, Hayward Edward Ronald, Hood Stuart Klink, Hudson Reginald Selby, Hughes William Edward, Hunter Robert, Hutton Thomas Lewis, Jones John Morgan, Judd Henry Alfred, Judd John Herbert, Kenworthy John Lay, Knight Richard, LaCroix David A., Laxton Walter Bertram, Lester Edward Gabriel, Lipsett Cecil Ward, Litchfield Richard William, Little Frederick, McDonald Angus Oliver, McLaughlin John, McDonald Alexander, McFall Charles Chambers, Mackenzie Alexander, McLaughlin Patrick Douglas, McPhee John Hugh, Metcalf James Edward, Milburn Ernest Edward, Miller Alexander John, Mitchell James Mackenzie, Montgomery Sidney Robert, Morton Thomas, Murray Collins Stewart, Newton Isaac, Nicholson William Angus, Parker Stanley Carpenter, Parton John Cecil, Prentice Samuel Thomas, Russell George, Scott Walter Ridley, Sharp Walter Forbes, Slack Delmar Catherwood, Slaney John Cobley, Smith Sidney, Smith Trenholm Goldwyn, Soloway Vincent Harry, Sorensen Alfred, Spouse John, Swan Jack, Tarleton Robert, Thomas Austin, Toole Edward Thomas, Topper Albert George, Tuckwell Humphrey Henry, Van Allen Kenneth Marston, Berner James Hamilton, Weatherhead John Christopher, Wharton James Alfred, Wharton William Edward, White Alfred Edgar, Wooler Charles Francis. Roll of Honor 1939 to 1945, World War II, 38 names. Bain David Lackland, Brown Robert, Catherwood Ernest S., Cochrane Arthur C., Dunbar Ronald, Fletcher William, Forster John J., Frederick George, George Gilbert, Green Philip S., Harold Luther C., Jasper David William, Jaffars George R., Johnstone Garnett, Jones Douglas E., Keenan Bernard O., Kenyon Archibald J., Ketley Clifford J., Kunzelman Wilbert J., Loving Leslie R., Matchell Harry G., McCreath Edward F., McIntyre Edward C., Moody Donald M., Nelson Theodore, Olson Donald B., Pearson Eric P., Prophet James B., Ross Reginald, Salisbury Sidney L., Schuberg Jack, Terapaki Bella, Terapiki Ernest, Terrace Gilbert, Wardrop Alexander, Wardrop John P., Weatherhead Richard, White William A., Wilson Curtis S. Roll of Honor Korea, Trenholm Richard R. The Hymn Amazing Grace, led by Jane Hayhoe.
The words are in your program.
Thank you, Jane. Would everyone please stand? Sergeant at Arms, have the color party carry colors.
Party attention. Color party carry colors.
The last post. They shall not grow old as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them. I now ask Kevin Tatla to lay the wreath for Canada. Simon Gibson, MLA, and MLA Bob Deeth to lay the wreath for British Columbia. Mayor Pam Alexis to lay the wreath for the District of Mission. Inspector Fellner to lay the wreath for the RCMP. Comrade Dave Bryant to lay the wreath for the Legion. Sergeant at Arms, have the color party order colors.
Color party, order colors.
And now the hymn, O God Our Help in Ages Past, led by Comrade Jane Hayhoe.
O God, our help in ages past, our hope for years to come, our shelter from the stormy blast, and our eternal home. Under the shadow of thy throne, thy saints have dealt secure. Sufficient is thine arm alone, and our defense is sure. Before the hills in order stood, our earth received a frame. From everlasting thou art God, to endless years the same. O God, our help in ages past, our hope for years to come. Be thou our God while troubles last, and our eternal home.
Thank you, Jane. Sergeant at Arms, have the color party carry colors.
Color party, carry colors.
Our ceremony of remembrance is now nearing its conclusion. May we never forget the sacrifices made by those who have remembered here today, and in remembering them, may we ever pray, Lord God of hosts, be with us yet, lest we forget, lest we forget. The Royal Anthem, Comrade Jane Hayhoe.
I'd like to thank Judy Braun for being here with us today to play piano.
God save our gracious Queen, long live our noble Queen. God save our Queen, sent her victorious, happy and glorious, long to reign over us. God save the Queen.
Sergeant at Arms, march out the color party. In closing, I would like to thank you all for coming here today to honor the memory of the fallen and honoring those who continue to serve. I also invite everyone to attend the Legion on Logan Avenue for further wreath laying and a social gathering.